Blog Talk Radio.
Batten down the hatches, the shows continue. Just finished up the gross misconduct one where Victor in Silver Lake was talking about Pittsburgh and Cincinnati ain't clean cities. We got to worry about the snow. He doesn't mind spending a lot of money on opening day and seeing Shohei Ohtani deliver the Dodgers to the World Series. I don't know what he's drinking in Silver Lake, but that's a story for another day. This is the great city of Cleveland, Ohio, to the forefront. The American Sports History Podcast, hosted by a brother, a mentor, and a friend, and I mean that dearly, Peter Ray. Yours truly, Mark Mancini, producing in Los Angeles, where we're going to get more rain, and this guest will feel it along with Peter come probably next week as it turns into snow back there. And that'll be a story for the meteorologist. 347-205-9631. If you happen to miss it, we realize 30 minutes goes by quick. blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe to podcasts, powered now by Mancini Media. So as I lay the red carpet, minus the Grammys, put the podium in its place, hand off the mic, this show's bigger than the Super Bowl previews. Peter, how are you? How can people get a hold of you? And you're bringing back this once-a-month guest. He's a great guy. It's like a checkup, seeing a doctor or a dentist. This great guy out of Philadelphia.
Hi, Mark. I'm doing well. I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Peter J. Rea. You're absolutely right. Tonight's guest comes on every 4 weeks. We talk NFL history. He's the author of 4 wonderful sports history books: Bench Bosses, the NHL's Coaching Elite 2015, Art of the Dealers, the NHL's Greatest General Managers 2017, Lords of the Gridiron, College Football's Greatest Coaches 2019, and the book that we'll continue talking about tonight, Lords of the Gridiron 2, Pro Football's Greatest Coaches 2022. And everyone's eagerly anticipating 2 books he's going to come out in 2026, Baseball's Greatest Managers and the NBA's Greatest Coaches. Welcome to the show, again, the incomparable Matthew DiBiase.
Peter, Mark, it's an honor and a privilege to come back. It's always the fun, best part of the night, when I get to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful talking NFL history. I really enjoy it and learn a lot. And tonight we're going to talk about the first guy is really obscure. I don't think I'd ever heard of him. He's 36 on your top 50 coaches. Jimmy Conzelman, who coached from 1921 to 1948, won championships with the Providence Steamroller and Chicago Cardinals. What can you say about Jimmy Conzelman?
Talk about a blast from the past. Jimmy Conzelman, along with George Halas and Curly Lambeau, was one of the NFL's founding fathers. I mean, he was present when what we now know as the National Football League was born in 1920. He was a halfback for the Decatur Staleys. He was a teammate of George Halas. And then throughout the 20s, he played for various pro teams like the Rock Island Independents, Milwaukee Badgers, Detroit Panthers, and the Providence Steamroller, just during the salad years of the NFL. In fact, a nice little trivia question: who was the head coach of a team that won an NFL championship that no longer exists? And it's Jimmy Conzelman, when he led the Providence Steamroller to the 1928 NFL title. And of course, another trivia question: who was the Cardinals are the NFL team with the longest championship drought. Who was the head coach of the Cardinals when they won their last title in '47? The answer is Jimmy Conzelman. But he was more than just a football coach, or even more than a football player. Oh, here another thing to note is when the NFL was doing all-decade teams, he is part of the 1920s all-decade team as a quarterback and halfback, Conzelman. That's how good a player he was. But he was more than just a football player and a coach. I mean, when doing the research on his life, it's amazing is that he was very much a Renaissance man. In addition to being a great athlete, not only was he a top-notch football player, he was a very good baseball player. And also, one time when he was still in the Navy, he was a recruit. Someone asked him, "Would you like to get into professional boxing?" because he was that good of a boxer. But he said no, he preferred to focus on his football career. But he could have been a boxer, and he so desired it. He was an accomplished pianist. He could even compose music, even though he couldn't read or write music. He played, and what happened was that he would have a professional arranger make the notation of his compositions. He was an actor in theater. He was also a columnist. He was a syndicated columnist for Hearst newspapers. He published acclaimed articles for Look magazine and the Saturday Evening Post. He even took up radio broadcasting. And after he completed his NFL coaching career, he was quite an accomplished businessman in St. Louis. I mean, he only lived 72 years, but when you look at it, he packed more like a century and a half of nonstop activity in 72 years of human existence. And he was just one of those people. He was perpetually doing something. He wasn't just sitting back and let the moss covering him. He just, he was constantly involved. I mean, one time he was giving a motivational speech at Dayton University, and he said, what makes a little fellow jump to his feet immediately and with a wide grin run back to his position? He said, experience, that's all. Experience in violence. He is physically and mentally poised when he faces body contact for what he knows what to expect. Basically, it's just constantly involvement, in taking part in action, almost kind of like a Theodore Roosevelt in a football uniform. He was always doing something. He wasn't just, he wasn't some couch potato waiting for something to happen. Konzelman was always making something happen. Now, he stopped coaching in the NFL after 1930, and for a time he was coaching at Washington University, which is located in St. Louis, Missouri. He was born and raised in Missouri. Actually, Konzelman is not his born name. He was born James Gleason Dunn in St. Louis, but his father died when he was just a little kid. His mother remarried to a man named Oscar Konzelman, and this Oscar Konzelman adopted Jimmy, and that's why his name was changed from Dunn to Konzelman. So he was an adopted child. And in the 30s, he was coaching football at Washington University. But then when the 1940s began, the Cardinals owner, Bidwell, I think was his name, Walter Bidwell, asked Konzelman to come back and help rebuild the team. And Konzelman agreed. And so throughout the 40s, slowly but surely, he just starts building the team up. He's getting guys like Paul Christman, Marshall Goldberg, and then he later adds Pat Harder and Elmer Angsman, and then finally the final piece was Charlie Trippi. And what you have was the dream backfield, and that was the thing that made the Chicago Cardinals, back then when they were called the Chicago Cardinals, winners and contenders in the late 1940s. And then finally, in 47, they go for it all. They challenge the Chicago Bears for the NFL Western Division title. They win it by a game, and then they take on the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL championship game. And what they did was, Konzelman was not so much a football tactician. What he focused on was keeping his players loose. He at team things, he would play the piano, sing songs. He was more of a motivator than a tactician. He left the X's and O's to his assistant coaches, one of whom was, featured in our last show, Buddy Parker. And when they were preparing against the Eagles, they took advantage of the Eagles' 5-2 defense that all they had was a defensive middle guard with no linebacker to back them up. So what they did was they did some double teaming on the middle guard, and what they did was they did some quick openers, and Angsman scored on 2 70-yard touchdown rushes, throughout the game, and it was played on an icy conditions in Chicago's Comiskey Park, because that's where the Chicago Cardinals played. The Bears played at Wrigley Field, but the Cardinals played at Old Comiskey Park. And they were able to beat the Eagles 28-21, and that's the last time the Cardinals franchise has ever won an NFL championship. In the following year, they repeat as Western Conference or Western Division champions, and they take on the Eagles again. This time it's in Philadelphia, and interesting enough, it was played in one of the worst snowstorms in the history of city of Philadelphia. I mean, the whole field was just totally covered in snow. It got so bad you couldn't even make out the yard markers. It was kind of like guesswork, just what was their field position. And it just totally negated the Cardinals' ability to play. And the Eagles were able to win the game 7-0. And Jimmy Konzelman just decided to call it quits. He retired, and he never really went back to football. He became a businessman, and He was also part of the local St. Louis Municipal Committee. He was very instrumental in helping the Cardinals move from Chicago to St. Louis. And then when the Pro Football Hall of Fame was created, he was on the early boards nominating its early inductees. And in fact, he was not part of the first class. He was too modest. He refused to suggest himself. And when Halas found out about it, he would say, "Why didn't you do it?" But Konzelman was a very modest and shy person. So the following year, Halas finagled a way to get Konzelman on the ballot without Konzelman knowing it, and finally automatic inductee. And in '64 he was in the second class of inductees into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But he was just an amazing figure. A true Renaissance man, and a very beloved human being.
Yeah, this is great that you're bringing this guy up. Like I said, I hadn't heard his name, and you mentioned him being founding father with George Halas and Curly Lambeau, who are well known, and the fact that he was quarterback of the NFL 1920s All-Decade team is so cool, and then winning championships as a coach from far apart, from 1928 to 47. That's also really amazing how he was around so long. And then as you mentioned, calling him a Renaissance man, which to me is like one of the greatest compliments you can give somebody, because I'm a sports fan, but there's more to life than sports. There's all kinds of things. There's history, literature, poetry, all kinds of things, and the fact that and I really respect that in anybody who is able. That's what the ancient Greeks believed in, and that's I think that is really good if we can develop ourselves. So that's really impressive that he was a Renaissance man. I have a friend. That's what I try to boost his spirits. I call him a Renaissance man because he is also. But so any more thoughts on Jimmy Konzelman?
It just occurred to me the fact that he coached NFL titles in 28 and 47. That's a 19-year gap. I wonder. I have to look that up if that's the NFL record for the longest time span between coaching NFL championships, 19 years. Because let's see, Halas. That was like 17 years for like 46 and 63. So I don't know if any other present-day coach has ever beaten that record, a 19-year gap between coaching a championship. That's something I need to look up. That's an interesting thought. I don't know. If someone can, I don't know. I have to look that up. But I quite possibly could be the NFL record, longest time span between coaching NFL titles.
Well, actually,
19 years? Yeah.
Well, to refresh your memory, you wrote in the book he holds the record for the longest time span between two NFL championships. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You're like me. You forget stuff you learned or even have shared with others. So that's tremendous. Now let's move on to the next guy in your list, number 37, Sean McVay, who's current. He's been the LA Rams coach since 2017, not coaching that long, and you've got him in the top 50.
Yeah, he really burst out of the gates. Now, and when the book came out, I have him ranked 37th, but if I update my system reflecting these past two seasons, I think his position, he may be dropped a little bit, okay, because he hasn't really performed up to the standard when he won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So, when the book came out, he was at 37th, but I bet you he's kind of fallen a little bit. I have to update my calculations now that the present season is over. But when my book came out, I had him ranked 37th. I mean, in his first 5 seasons, he won 3 divisional titles, had 4 playoff appearances, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and won the Super Bowl title in the 2021 season. He was like a boy wonder. He was the youngest when he took over the Los Angeles Rams. He became the youngest man ever to coach in NFL history. He was the youngest man ever to coach a Super Bowl champion. In fact, he was part of a trend at the time when he took over the Rams. A lot of teams were getting like young Lion offensive or defensive coordinators. He was guys like Matt LaFleur and Zach Taylor. because they worked under him, but they were in the same position. Young guys, they were just young studs, very innovative, and they were able to get their foot in the head coaching door and all that. He was just his father John coached college football at Dayton University, and then he even coached in the old Board of World Football League. Then later became a head coach in the New York Giants, and then he was a GM for the 49ers during the Bill Walsh era. So the football was literally in his DNA. His father was a defensive back at Indiana University. He was born in Ohio in '86, but they were living in Frisco when his grandfather was working as a general manager. So basically, he was born for football. He was in the locker room with Joe Montana, Walsh, Seifert. He was just a kid absorbing it. He was a high school quarterback at Marist in Brookhaven, Georgia. Led the team to a state title, named Player of the Year. But he wasn't able to get any scholarships at the Division I-A level, so he had to go for the next best thing. What he did was he got a scholarship at the University of Miami, Ohio, which of course has that reputation of being the cradle of coaches. I mean, so many great coaches out of University of Ohio: Paul Brown, Weeb Eubank, Ara Parsegian, Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes, Sid Gilman, so on and so forth. He was a high school quarterback, but he played wide receiver at Miami at Ohio. Again, there was just no way he was going to get drafted in the NFL. So he went into coaching straight away. He actually met up. John Gruden kind of discovered him. He met up with Gruden at a preseason scouting combine and all that. Got a job at Tampa Bay. He was a wide receivers coach at the United Football League and semi-pro. Then when Mike Shanahan hired him, when Shanahan was coaching the Washington Redskins, he was the offensive assistant, then later the tight ends coach, and then finally he became the offensive coordinator. And he really learned under Shanahan. I mean, it really broadened out his outlook. It was Shanahan who taught who taught McVay how to make his passing and running formations look the same, how to camouflage his formations, how to use the outside running game with zone blocking. McVay picked up a trick from Bill Belichick, the use of pre-snap motion. He would use pre-snap motion to force opposing defenses to reveal whether they were in man or zone coverage, and then later designed plays where he stationed his best man coverage beater receiver on a line that showed man coverage and his best zone coverage receivers on the side that showed zone. He was their coordinator for 3 seasons, and then by the end he was even calling the plays itself. The Redskins really improved their record from near the bottom to the top in terms of offensive productivity. Then finally, the Rams reached out and hired him to replace Jeff Fisher, and he's been there ever since. I mean, when he took over, the Rams were just horrible condition. I mean, just pathetic, and he just turned it all around. He made them winners and playoff contenders, got them into the Super Bowl in 2018, but unfortunately, instead of being one of the greatest offensive slugfests in Super Bowl history, instead it became the ultimate battle of the defenses, and the Rams lost, 13-3, but they just took a while, and then they got it all back again, and then they won the Super Bowl again in 2021. I mean, they got Matt Stafford there. I mean, it was a rough ride in the playoffs. It was weird. I mean, they would take leads and then allow the other team to come back, and then they would have to rally, just to win again. They did it against Tampa. They did it against San Francisco, and when they were against Cincinnati, they had to do it again. They got a lot of help from the referees. But it was just an amazing contest, and McVay was able to get the Rams to their second Super Bowl title, ever, And again, that was a long time span because the last one they did was under Vermeil, and ever since then, he's just been trying to hold it together with the Rams. So, your thoughts, Peter?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He was 36 years old when he won his Super Bowl. That's only a couple of years ago, and yeah, that is the trend. It's such a tough job, and I guess the idea is like, well, you need a young guy who can hold up, and maybe be creative and innovative. And actually, I believe it's the longest NFL title drought that ended 70 years. They won in 1951.
Yeah.
The Rams were in Cleveland up till 40. They won in Cleveland up till in 1945, and they won in 51. Of course, they moved to L.A. and they moved to St. Louis, but then they're back. So anyway, it was 70 years. So anyway, that's pretty interesting. A guy that young. Actually, the Cleveland Guardians just hired their new manager. He's like 30, and so that's kind of the trend, and you can understand that. So anyway, when the Rams won, I was rooting for them because they'd had this longest title drought. But in a way, I felt kind of sad seeing the Bengals lose. And Mike Brown, they showed Mike Brown, the son of Paul Brown, who looks just like his father.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that's and he's a current coach. So any more thoughts, Matt, on Sean McVay?
Well, the thing is, with regards to the Rams Super Bowl title, I was glad that Matthew Stafford was finally able to get a Super Bowl ring because he had a lot of hard years with the Detroit Lions, getting battered about and all that. So finally, he goes to a better situation with Los Angeles, and teamed up with great receivers like Cooper Kupp, and also he had a complete team that backed him up, unlike where it had in Detroit at the time. He was able to get when Aaron Donald, one of the finest defensive linemen in the NFL, he was able to get his Super Bowl ring. So I was glad for those guys when they were able to pull it off and all of that. My thoughts about that, right now though, there's been that drop off, and you kind of wonder if he'll be able to reconstitute and get the Rams back into contention again. But you got this resurgent 49ers team. It's going to be very difficult. And all of that. I'm ready to take questions from the general public.
Yeah, I don't see any here, but we have some time. Now, Matt, do you want to talk about this? The Super Bowl just ended, 2 days ago. Do you want to talk about this year's Super Bowl?
I think it was a fantastic game. I don't care. A lot of people focused about Taylor Swift. I didn't give a hoot about it. I don't care. It's not the first time you had a celebrity couple. People forget Jane Russell, the actress Jane Russell, married Bob Waterfield of the Los Angeles Rams. They were married for years and all of that. No one made us think about it then. And also about Travis Kelce, having that sideline row with Andy Reid. I don't know. I think there's an old French saying that says victory has a way of atoning a multitude of sins. Yeah, they may have jawed at one another on the sideline, but hey, Kelce made some big key catches in that final drive, and finally the Chiefs were able to pull it out. 3 Super Bowl wins in 5 years, 4 Super Bowl appearances in 5 years. If that's not a dynasty, I don't know what is. Right now Andy Reid is having the greatest years of his life, and with these 2 back-to-back Super Bowl wins, it's going to be interesting to see when I update my ratings where Andy Reid does. It wouldn't surprise me now if he ranks among the top 10, because when my book came out, I think I've had him at number 11, number 12, or something like that. And now I bet you anything he's a part of the top 10 now, and he's having the greatest years of his life. Here he is, and by football standards, he's practically doddering. But he's literally having his peak years, and I know there have been rumors that he may be retiring, but why should he? Here's a chance to go for the three-peat. He's got the perfect instrument in Kelce, Mahomes, Pacheco, the offense and the defense. If you don't go for the three-peat, I can't see what would stop him unless there's some type of closet health issue. But I don't think anyone's mentioned that. So, no, I'd say kudos to Andy Reid. He's doing it. He keeps elevating his game, and it'll be interesting when I update my calculations since this present season over, just how far up he's moved, into the top 10. That's the question that comes to my mind. But it was a great game. I'll tell you, when that blocked extra point took place, I thought, oh, baby, that was going to be the moment. I thought that was going to be extremely significant because that gave the Chiefs flexibility, especially in the final minutes of the regular time. That gave the Chiefs the option to play for a tie, and they could go either for the win or the tie, and then again in overtime. It just. I think it was a great game. I don't care what the stupid conspiracy theorists say. That is just such stupid, worthless nonsense. It's just utterly idiotic. The commercials were so-so. I saw that stupid RFK Jr. political ad. That was such a travesty. It's just stupid. Nothing really stood out in my mind, anything that really impressed me about the commercials. The halftime show, I stopped paying attention to the halftime show like a long time ago, so I don't really give a hoot about it. But the game itself was absolutely worthy of praise. I mean, a sensational matchup. I don't think Brock Purdy has anything to be ashamed of. He did everything he could. The Chiefs adjusted, just like they did against the Eagles last season. They adjusted beautifully in the second half, were able to contain the 49ers, and they were able to finally get their offense going. So basically it was a repeat of what happened last year. The Chiefs, made the proper adjustments. They started executing on offense. Once Mahomes started executing that, everything fell into place. I mean, everything hinges on Mahomes. Can he execute? That was my prediction before the Super Bowl. If Mahomes executes, then the Chiefs win. But if he doesn't, when he lost that Super Bowl to Tampa, it was because he couldn't execute. The Tampa Bay defense was containing him and stopping him. But Mahomes is one of the great quarterbacks. Now, is he the greatest of all time? I mean, he's still a kid. Basically, he's still a kid. I mean, we got a long way to go. But, hey, 3 Super Bowl rings, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Hey, he's a great quarterback. I mean, he's still got a long way to go to be the greatest. But right now, he is a great quarterback and definitely the greatest quarterback of the 2020s. And according to my calculations, Andy Reid is the best NFL coach of the 2020s, according to my rating system.
What's interesting is they had new rules this year, which guaranteed both teams would get the ball in overtime. Before, if you scored a touchdown, you win.
Yeah.
And the Niners won the toss and they elected to receive. Now they could have put their defense on the field, because if the Chiefs had scored their touchdown, then the Niners have to match it. And they're not going to settle. They settled for a field goal. They were deep when they kicked that field goal. It was a chip shot, so they would have had a chance, to go for a tie. But of course they didn't. So anyway, it was dramatic as heck, considering that the Chiefs were losing with 3 seconds left in overtime, and then they were instant winners when Mahomes hit that short touchdown pass. So
yeah.
Now we're running out of time here. We have a couple comments. Let's see. Dalen from Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Hey, guys, great show as always. He says he's got the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series. And Lawrence from Utica, New York. I would match up the New York Giants with these KC guys. Any comments on those two comments?
Well, the Yankees and Dodgers and an upcoming World Series. Yankees, no. Dodgers, maybe. I still say keep your eyes on either Houston or Atlanta. Look for Texas. Bruce Bochy, he reaffirmed his managerial greatness. Let's see if he adds another one to his escutcheon. But I say, no, not the Yankees, no. Aaron Boone is a heartbreak manager. I don't see that happening. I think it's either going to be Houston or Texas, taking on either Atlanta or the Dodgers, in the next World Series, according to my view. Giants, oh man, they got a long way to go to rebuild, man. They're far from it. No, I don't think so. I don't see that happening. Not really. No.
I think he's talking about the Giants from years ago, when they won with what's his name?
Oh, Parcells.
Yeah, Parcells. Right.
Yeah. That's long ago, man. That was a totally different team. The Giants have always had those fallow periods. There's feast or famine. There's not really much in between. Right now, they're in this famine period, still trying to, find themselves.
The time has flown by. One more thing I think I'll just throw in here, that Brady Belichick and the Patriots are history, and now we have this new now we have Mahomes, Reed, and the Chiefs. So that's kind of taking their place. Matthew, we've run out of time. Do you have any final words tonight for our audience?
Yes, I will be podcasting tonight on my personal podcast, The Package Tourist, on the Spotify network. I'll be taping at 10 p.m., and I'll be posting my latest show with baseball author Dr. David Jerome, who wrote a nice biography of Bill Verdon, baseball player and manager Bill Verdon. I'll be interviewing about the book, and I'll be up after 10:30 p.m. tonight. So please keep your eyes and ears open, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks a million for another wonderful NFL history show, Matthew DiBiase.
Peter, I love you, man, and can't wait for 4 weeks from now. We're going to do it again.
Right. Very good. Thank you so much. Yeah, 4 weeks from tonight, March 12th, we'll have Matthew DiBiase. We'll be talking about Jim Lee Howes, the New York Giants in the 1950s, and Tom Flores, who won a couple titles with the Raiders in Oakland and L.A., 1980 and 1983. Week from tonight, we'll have Bill North, tremendous center fielder in MLB in the 1970s. And in 2 weeks, we'll have Warren Brewster, who was an MLB pitcher from 1977 to 1985. Dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind beat your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks a million so much, Mr. Matthew DiBiase.
God love you, Pete.
God bless you.
Yep.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.